Hey everybody, Tyler with Meeple Mountain here, bringing you another board game preview today, this time from our great friends at Slugfest Games who have just been inundating me with review content lately, which I love. Thank you guys, keep it up, love your content. Today they've given us not one, but two expansions to Red Dragon Inn that will go eventually into this large box here. Expansions 8 and 9 for Red Dragon Inn, Pub Crawl, and the Undercity. Now if you're familiar with Red Dragon Inn, each of these large box expansions adds 4 new playable characters, as well as expansions, additional content to previously established variants or expansions or mechanics, and something new, usually some kind of new variant. So specifically, I'm really excited to show you the Pub Crawl expansion variant, which adds a new way that you can kind of move around town and get different varied drinks, new events. There's some really fun stuff in here. There's some awesome characters I'm excited to show you, as well as some boss battle variants that you can do, a co-op, boss battle things. There's some really fun stuff in here. So lots of cool content. Excited to jump in and show you this. It is worth mentioning, this is not a learn to play game for Red Dragon Inn. I'm going to cover that very, very lightly and quickly, but this is not a learn to play Red Dragon Inn game. We're really just going to focus on the 8 and 9 content here because there's so much new content to show you. So we're really going to be talking about this as though you understand and have established the general rules of the game. So just keep that in mind as we jump in. But I'm really excited to get this to the table and show you guys this content. So without further ado, let's check out expansions 8 and 9 for Red Dragon Inn. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the world of Red Dragon Inn. This is one of my favorite party games where you and many potentially other opponents will be playing against each other. You'll be taking on the role of one of the plethoric amount of adventurers set in the Red Dragon Inn universe. You will be a team of adventurers. You're actually a party that has just completed an amazing adventure together successfully, and you've gotten your payout in this wonderful pizza pie shaped gold here. And you're going to the pub to celebrate. You are off to celebrate your victory, your adventure, and your camaraderie by spending your gold on drinks. Every player will have a player board like this that will represent their health, their fortitude, and their alcohol content, how inebriated they are. And you're going to be playing through rounds of the game trying to get your opponents unconscious, whether that is through pub brawls, knocking them out, dropping their fortitude, giving them drinks, buying them alcohol so that their alcohol content goes up. If you're two dials, you'll have a dial on each side. If those two indicators ever meet or cross paths at any time, your character falls unconscious and they're kicked out of the inn, removing you from the game. If you ever run out of gold to spend when you need to spend gold to buy drinks, to gamble, to do anything, you are also, if you lose that round of gambling, kicked out of the inn as well for being broke, and that is another way you can be eliminated from this game. So this is a player elimination game. It is a take that kind of game, but it is a very fun adventure game, and you'll see some just incredible hijinks and hilarity ensue as you play through games of Red Dragon Inn. Now, if you've played this game before, you'll know that the beauty of this game, the gorgeous thing about Red Dragon Inn is the vast amount of replayability that are packed into this game. There are already over 50 characters in Red Dragon Inn that can be played and interchanged, and so the amount of opportunity you have to replay this game and have it never be the same game twice is staggering. And so I'm so excited that Slugfest is continuing to support this title, continuing to put out amazing content. So what we have here in front of us is Red Dragon Inn Expansion 8 on the left and Red Dragon Inn Expansion 9 on the right. And I've kept that content separated so that we can kind of talk in depth about what each of those expansions bring. And then we'll take a little bit more of an in-depth look at some of the content. So just a high-level view here. On the left, we have Red Dragon Inn Expansion 8, Pub Crawl. And this introduces 4 new characters. Those characters, of course, come with their own asymmetry and really, really awesome things that they're bringing to the table. I especially like Father Fari, who's a human cleric. He has his own set of alcohol that he likes to dole out to people, which just kind of ramps up the alcohol generation content. We have a boss, Narito the Petrifier, the Business Gorgon. She runs one of the pubs in town, but is also a boss character that you can fight. And you can fight against her as a co-op game, so it could be, you know, a mini versus one situation where one person takes on the role of this kind of overpowered character, and all the players kind of work together against them. You can also have bosses fight other bosses as an additional type. So kind of in the same vibe as Dice Throne Adventures, if you're familiar with that, but really fun expansion here. The coolest thing about this expansion is the pub crawl itself. So it incorporates a set of these pub cards that we'll take a look at in more detail in just a second, but they're actually other bars, other establishments throughout the city that Red Dragon Inn is set in, and your team will actually crawl to other pubs and drink their drinks as well. And when you go there, it kind of changes the game a little bit. You'll have a tavern event that does something. There's some kind of new feature that happens to you, and then there's new drinks available at those inns. So not only do you have, of course, a new drink deck that can be used here at the Red Dragon Inn, but there's also new drinks available at all these different pub locations. All really cool stuff. The pub crawl really changes the way the game is played, and it feels like you're going on a crawl around town. Very, very fun things. On the right, we have Undercity, the 9th expansion. Now, this adds a new pub that can be added to the pub crawl expansion in 8. It adds some cards for Otto, the mechanical friend, who actually becomes an AI companion. You can actually add an AI if it was just maybe 2 players, you wanted a third. You can add in Otto, who will do some additional things for you there. This adds additional cards for the prize variant. The prize adds the prizes in when gambling. These prizes will do various things, will become trinkets and trophies for those who win those particular rounds of gambling. All very, very exciting things. Of course, the new drink deck. Another boss, Petra the Devious, who is a Demonkin rogue. She does some interesting things as well. She has a Hellfire track that she'll utilize. Again, this could be for that co-op variant or a boss battle variant. And it adds 4 new characters as well. We have Dale the Mycologist, who has an amazing deck of mushrooms that are just crazy, silly, powerful for what they are. We also have the doctor here, Tercy, who has patients that they're actually trying to cure as you play throughout the game, and it adds some really cool elements. This is my favorite character from this deck for sure. But there's some amazing characters, so we'll take a look at that in detail as well and talk about their specifics as well. But this is kind of an overview, so with that said, let's jump in and we'll start with the pub crawl. We'll take a look at the characters, kind of what they bring to the table, what makes them unique, and then we'll talk in depth about the pub crawl expansion variant here as well. Let's take a look at each character that you can find within the Red Dragon Inn pub crawl expansion. First up is Phil Startusk, and basically you can tell if you look here that he is an orc entrepreneur starting his own Starbucks-esque franchise. You know, one of those visually similar to but legally distinct from coffee startups, right? And now Phil plays pretty standard as far as his gameplay. He has a balance between gambling cards and kind of fortitude, alcohol, damage things. His really cool, unique thing is his mix-ins. He has ways to get these back and reuse these, but these mix-ins are all going to be sometimes cards that allow him to add in effects to drinks that are going out. Now, he's obviously, since he's running a barista shop, he is a barista, he's very drink-oriented, he's very alcohol-heavy as far as how he plays, but these mix-ins, as you can see as you read through them here, do some crazy stuff. And their whole thing is it's a negative, usually to someone else, and it's going to be a positive to himself. So there's all kinds of fun things that you can do in here to kind of mess with people's drinks. And it is truly one of my favorite things in the game is messing with people's drinks anyway. And so Phil really doubles down in that style of gameplay. Next we have Father Farai, who's a human cleric. He is a brewmaster. He is kind of filling that Tapist monk style archetype where he is all about the booze. He actually comes with his own set of wine, beer, and spirits that he is working on throughout the game. He is actually always busy crafting some delicious thing, and most of his cards will have a symbol like this. They'll have a symbol for a spirit, they may have a symbol for some wine, or they may even have this paddle symbol which lets you kind of adjust between these. But as you reveal those symbols, you'll actually begin to work on one of these different brews that you can work on. And you may, depending on the symbol, work on any of these, and you can rotate between them if you get the paddle symbol or add progress to them. But you'll start on these different types of spirits, and they're all going to be benefits that you can use once you've completed them. And as you reveal cards or play cards with the various corresponding symbol, you'll actually add progress tokens to these drinks. And once you reach the progress amount indicated on the card, you'll be able to utilize that drink. And these drinks do all kinds of things. They can help you, they can harm other people, they'll do all kinds of different playstyle things. And so really the play style of Father Farai is to kind of manage your deck and choose the cards you play carefully to really optimize how quickly you can complete those brews and give yourself an edge over your opponent. Next, we have Samantha the Bookie. Samantha also runs one of the other pub establishments in the world of Red Dragon Inn, but she is a bookie, a human entrepreneur for all intents and purposes. Her thing is all about kind of controlling the battlefield, so to speak, or the pub in this case. She has a lot of things that allow her to ignore drinks, move things around, not spend her gold on things, gain gold, all kinds of kind of utility-based cards, but her real unique mechanic is the ability to start brawls. A lot of her cards will reference starting a brawl, starting a second brawl, or ignoring or countering things and starting brawls. So this brawl is kind of setting up fights that will predominantly affect other players. She's kind of initiating, instigating bar fights between players. So whenever a card references starting a brawl, she'll flip the top deck over. Here's some examples here, and you'll resolve that particular card. Those cards will do things, usually to other players, that will mess with them, make them lose fortitude, give gold to you, make them gain alcohol, whatever it is, but she's just starting random fights that don't affect her directly. The nice thing for Samantha, and the reason she wants to start fights, is as she starts brawls, she's going to move this counter up through her little track here, and once she reaches certain thresholds, she gains benefits. When she gets to the 4th, so started her 4th brawl, she'll lose an alcohol content, which is great. She starts to sober up. When she gets to 7, she gets a free gold from the inn, and when she gets to 10, she always orders an additional drink whenever she orders drinks for players. So this really just powers up her utility, gives her some nice little perks, and gives her an added edge over her opponents. These brawls are fun. They're super random, so you never know what you're going to get, and it keeps things fresh throughout a game of Red Dragon Inn. Here we have a really fun and unique character that I was really pleased to see come into this expansion. We have Lucky. Lucky is a goblin rogue, and she definitely does some illicit activities. She runs a less than reputable little shop throughout Red Dragon Inn, and all of the things that she's doing will generate heat. She has a relatively gambling / cheating focused deck, as you would expect from someone who's a little bit more on the let's say chaotic evil side of things. Definitely not lawful. But as she does certain empowered actions, she will gain heat, and heat will go on this card here, and heat's actually bad. Whenever it's full, all the tokens clear off, and Lucky has to choose, the player has to choose to do something negative to themselves. They're going to lose health, gain alcohol, or have to pay gold to the inn. Now, you just have to hope that the cards, the benefits that are coming with these cards outweighs the cost to yourself and the heat that you're getting from the law. And you can read some example cards here. There's some really, really cool ones. There's ones that kind of allow you to screw over other players, certainly ones that allow you to cause a lot of damage quickly to other players, but I especially like this curse card here that allows you to ante without paying, and if someone else wins that particular round of gambling, they actually lose health, so you kind of booby trap the game of poker a little bit, kind of similar to another goblin bomber from a series way back in Red Dragon Inn. So I love stuff like this. Lots of control, lots of interesting choices here, but it is important to note that if you're not careful as you play Lucky and are too aggressive with your card play and heat, you can certainly knock yourself out of the game by overusing your heat, and so choosing what to lose and when to play cards that generate heat is super key here. So I would say Lucky's not the easiest character to learn, but there's a lot of really cool potential here to check out. Now, Nerudia is an interesting character because she's another bar owner, the Business Gorgon. She runs another bar establishment, the Red Dragon Inn town, but she is a boss character as well. She's considered a villainous character, so she has a character deck of 40 cards that you can play, but she also has these 15 with these dragon symbols on them, boss cards that can be added. So if you wanted to, you would add these into your base deck and actually become a boss character with a bigger hand count, more powerful cards that will come into play, and you can actually play against multiple other players. So for instance, I could play Nerudia against 2 other normal characters, and so that would involve me adding these powerful cards in here. But it does seem that she's entirely playable and balanced as a normal character without these cards added in. I love that feature that you can kind of ramp up a character's difficulty, make them a boss, or just play with the base character deck. Now, Nerudia has a really fun mechanic. She is a Gorgon, so she's kind of doing that Medusa vibe. She can petrify cards. Petrifying cards in this game means that she gets to take cards cards from players' hands and put them into a petrification deck. She's going to make a stack of cards for herself that she'll start putting in. She always puts them, I believe, at the bottom of their petrification deck. So you kind of stack from the bottom up. And she'll build this deck of cards that she can use to empower her own abilities with these glare effects. Anything you see says glare is going to have a number beside it. To use the glare effect, it basically empowers that card, and you have to give back basically that many cards from your petrification deck, from the top of your petrification deck. And so if I wanted to do this glare 3 card, which we see is very powerful, a 4 fortitude damage card, that's huge for your action, but I would have to take 3 cards from my petrification deck, give them back to the hands of the players that I took them from. And so she's interesting to have in the game because your hand size is going to keep changing probably at inopportune times for you as an opponent. You're going to lose cards to her, and then she's going to give them back to you. And it's going to mess up your strategies and your plans. It's a really fun mechanic, and I like what it does. Now, of course, if she doesn't have the petrification pile to do it, she can't pay the glare cost. And it's worth noting, every turn she does decay on her petrification pile, so she does always give 1 card back. So she has to make sure that she's petrifying multiple cards around, or she's going to actually be losing her petrification pile, and that makes her very weak. So this is a really fun character. Again, a little bit advanced because you have to manage that pile, but with proper use of your glare cards and pulling cards away from people with the petrification ability, Nerudia is a strong and powerful character contender. Here we have the new variant, the pub crawl variant for the pub crawl expansion for Red Dragon Inn. This is the new thing. This is the real meat of this expansion. That is something entirely new that it adds as a variant that you can incorporate into your game, and I think that it is fun. It's full of flavor. It's really, really cool. This lets you actually crawl to different drinking establishments throughout the town that the Red Dragon Inn is set in. Of course, it's not the only pub in the entire town. It's a big town. Greyport is a large city, and so you have other places you can go to that, of course, have flavor and feel really cool. So, for instance, here we have the Red Dragon Inn, which always uses still its 30-card drink deck, just like normal. All of that is the same. But then there's other drinking establishments. So you can see here Star Tusk's establishment that Phil runs, so your little Starbucks kind of knockoff. Here we have Lucky's Rolling Barrel. That's that super illegal drinking little barrel that Lucky runs. There's all kinds of them. The Scurvy Dog, which is managed by the Bookie. There's another place, the Black Dragon Depths, that's managed by the Gorgon. All of these different drinking places have their own little deck of drink cards, and they're going to always come with 6 cards, like so, that are going to be in play for each establishment, and they actually have their own effects and different little things they do that, of course, feel flavorful and fun and tied into the type of establishment you would expect to find at that location. So these are some really fun, different drink variants that you can have. Now, how do you get to these pubs? How do you do this? Well, every time you reveal a drink from the drink deck that would have a chaser, you will crawl to a different pub, and you'll actually bounce to another pub. The active player will choose the pub they want to go to, as long as the pub still has drinks in their little micro drink deck. When you go there, you'll trigger the tavern event that's listed on that particular location. So if we went to Lucky's Rolling Barrel, we would do this tavern event, and so people would have to resolve that. Everyone has to discard up to 2 cards from their hand and then draw that many. So all kinds of little things. They all are unique and are different. When you go there, drinking will continue, gameplay will continue as normal, but instead of drinking from the drink deck from the Red Dragon Inn, you'll drink from the deck of that particular bar. If that place ever runs out, or if you get a chaser, you will then crawl to another pub. And this will continue, and you can, of course, crawl back to the Red Dragon Inn, and when you do, you unfortunately have to pay gold to the inn, and you'll continue to bounce around until either the game ends, as it would normally end with all the players being eliminated one way or another, or you would then go back to the Red Dragon Inn if all of these establishments ever run out of drinks, and of course you would not crawl anymore. So it's just fun little places to bounce around to that give you some flavor, but it does truly offer some tactical depth to the active player. If you get a drink with a chaser, there may be places you want to go to mess with your opponents or try to lean into a particular style of drink that you may know is at that particular establishment that might benefit you. So this adds a little bit of strategy, a little bit of tactics to the game, and I really do feel that it adds to the flavor and the vibe of this idea that you're adventuring a D&D party that is out celebrating your recent adventuring success. So this just feels really fun and really exciting. With expansion 8 completed, let's go to expansion 9, the Undercity, and jump in and look at Dale the Mycologist, who is a pixie farmer growing mushrooms. Now, he's the first character we'll look at from this expansion and has one of the most interesting sub-little mechanics that I've seen in this game so far. So he's always growing mushrooms. Every turn, he's going to top deck a mushroom over into his planter's box and use a little rake to start growing and taking care of that mushroom as well. And so Dale is always going to be cultivating these mushrooms. He has a mechanic similar to Nerodia's petrification glare system, where he has a harvest system. And so as these mushrooms grow, he'll be moving these rake tokens down, accumulating what's called harvest points for them. And what he'll do is, if he ever wants to play a card and use the harvest cost, as you can see, their additional effects, he can discard enough mushrooms with their value, wherever the rake is at, to reach that harvest value. So if I had, for instance, a 1 and a 2, I could get rid of these mushrooms to pay for a harvest cost 3 ability. Now, as these items continue to grow, you'll notice some of them don't have any harvest value. Some get better as they go, some get worse as they go. And once they get to the bottom, you have to gather them at the end of your turn. And so in this case, this ghost tassel is actually, you want to use it and harvest it right away because it's terrible. It has no effect. Some, of course, are incredible when they get to the gather effect, and you're just waiting for them to get there. All of them do very different things, and you have some really cool choices. Do you want to harvest something that's great at the end for its harvest cost to do a really cool ability here? Do you want to wait to gather it to use its gather effect? And this is always changing and being managed by your cards, by your actions, and of course just what's coming up out of your mushroom deck. This is a very variable play style. It offers a ton of utility, a ton of options, and you honestly almost feel like you're playing an entirely different little mini game. The thing I love about Red Dragon Inn characters is there's certainly a swath of difficulty, from original characters like Gurky, who just have a deck of cards, to these guys who have entirely new mechanics and sub-games that they're playing within the game. And so I would say that Dale certainly has some difficulty and complexity to him, but man, is he fun to play. Speaking of a character who does not have additional mechanics or another deck, we have Yeagle here, who is the Dwarf Ranger. Now, he's a Beast Sergeant, and their whole shtick is utilizing pets. Now, you'll notice some of these cards on the right have this little paw print on the top left-hand side to let you know, but they are a subcategory pet card. So he's got all kinds of pets running around with him, and they do some interesting things. And a few of his cards throughout his deck will do some really neat things, allowing you to return pet cards from your discard pile to hand and reuse them, revealing cards until you find pets. The pets are really the main engine of your deck that do some really cool things. Most of these pets are kind of standard, what you'd kind of expect for action cards, sometimes cards, but some of them are incredibly strong. So they're really fun. Of course, have some cool flavor, a cool vibe. I would say that this particular character is certainly on the easier to master side. There's not a lot of complex mechanics here, but there is a fun theme, and the pets certainly do some really interesting things, especially Philip, who is just out there being rowdy. Next, we have Jet the Courier, and man, is he cool. He has so many interesting cards. Now, Jet's main mechanic is the use of momentum. Nothing crazy. He just gets a tracker that moves his momentum up or down, depending on the cards he uses. But as you can see here, if you look at some of these cards, they're all about momentum, and he has a lot of utility for them. He is allowed to draw additional cards, gaining momentum. Let's see here some good examples. He can actually do some cool delivery mechanics and gain some gold, give other people some benefits. He can do some really interesting gambling, cheating type things utilizing his momentum. So he can do all kinds of interesting things and decide if he wants to potentially use that momentum for some really cool abilities or quick rushes. He can also use it to kind of offset damage or alcohol content that he may be receiving. And so the strategic use and loss of your momentum as Jet is super, super important. But I like this character. He, again, is relatively simple, doesn't have a crazy mechanic, but there's a lot of cool cards, a lot of interesting options, choices on some of them, and a fun mechanic. He has a lot of utility and is certainly a good addition to the game. Here we have what is probably my favorite character in the game. We have Tercy the Doctor, a human physician. So Tercy is trying to take care of the less fortunate in the city that just can't afford medical care, magical medical care. And as a non-magic using doctor, Tercy is perfect for them. And so they're actually out trying to collect the medical supplies that they need to take care of their patients. At the start of the game, you'll always have 2 patients waiting on you. And they're going to have a need for up to 3 of the 3 types of medical resources that you have available. We'll call it medicine, bandages, and sutures. And as you see that these different cards that you have symbols on the bottom that match those particular needs. And as you play throughout your game, the game of Red Dragon Inn, as you play cards with these, you can, if the card was not canceled by another player, collect the corresponding or your choice of medical supply to your player board once that card is completed. Then you can spend those medical supplies, if they match, to take care of patients and remove them from your waiting patient list. When you do, you'll take the card and it's actually going to go into your hand and it has an effect. These cards will do beneficial things for you, which is kind of representative of the patients thanking you, giving you some form of compensation for your care, because even though they're less fortunate, they still appreciate the work that you're doing. And so this is how you kind of get your edge on your opponents throughout the game, is by doing good, helping people. So you want to play your cards strategically, get the right supplies that you need for your patients, and continue to kind of churn through the needy to get these additional cards so that you can gain an advantage over your opponents. Super fun mechanic, super kind of flavorful, thematic mechanic, and I just love the concept that what you're doing here as a doctor in this care. It's very fun. It certainly has some powerful cards. You'll notice like this one here, needing all 3 of those patients, has a really cool potion that you can utilize if you gain access to that card. And so these cards can certainly make or break your playstyle. If you play Tercy and do not help a lot of patients, you are not going to win. The deck is okay at best, but it becomes really powerful when you're thinking that you're pairing it with these kind of free cards that you're getting throughout your card play. And so the patients are certainly the bread and butter of this deck. It's certainly enjoyed having Tercy as an addition to my game. Last but not least, we have Petra the Devious, a playable character that also can have a boss variant, which would incorporate using these characters in the boss battle side. Now remember, the boss battles are the 1 versus many styles or boss versus boss fights. So if you just want to try something different, that's always nice. I love having that flexibility. So here we have a look at Petra, though. We're talking about her as a normal playable character. Petra's 2 unique mechanics are the use of Hellfire and plotting schemed cards. So the way that works, Hellfire is always going to be continually generating on this wheel, and it has an ability to deal additional fortitude damage to players once you reach this fire mark here. So every 4 Hellfire generated, you're dealing some additional damage, which can be great if you ramp it up. Certain cards will also do additional things off of your Hellfire track rating, so there can be some cool timing mechanics there as well. A lot of Petra's cards are schemes. They have the subtype scheme, and they're always going to have this little flip ability here. What a scheme is if it is activated from your plotted area on your player board, that will do this additional flip effect, kind of like a trap card from Yu-Gi-Oh, if you will, instead of playing it from your hand. This is easier said than done, because while you can play any number of cards down into your plot area, those cards are always discarded at the beginning of your turn before you draw and will generate Hellfire. So it's a great way to generate Hellfire, but they will be lost at the start of your next turn. So what you'll try to do as you play this game is get your schemes plotted in front of you at timely times throughout the game, so that you can activate their flip effects and gain an edge on your opponents. You of course can plot any other cards that you want just to generate Hellfire at the start of your next turn, which can be tactical as well, but doing this of course limits the amount of cards in your hand for response, and improper playing time of your schemes could mean that they get discarded before you're able to use them. So there is a lot of difficulty to Petra in how you plot your cards, how you activate your schemes, and generate your Hellfire, but she's incredibly powerful and has a lot of really cool burst potential if you execute those schemes properly. Really quickly, I'll just touch on a few additional components that are in the 9 expansion Undercity for Red Dragon Inn. We have the Star Mole Drinking Hole, which of course is another drinking spot that can be added to your pub crawl adventures. It has this adorable little hot chocolate, but all kinds of different cards, just more variety, which is always a good thing. Also, 2 new little decks of cards for Otto the Mechanical Companion. You have a Splunker and a Berserker Otto. These, of course, determine the playstyle for this AI. If you're unfamiliar with him, the quick kind of elevator pitch is this is an AI character that runs through your game that adds a player character if you're just short on players, but still want to kind of have additional players, or if you want to even try your hand solo against Otto, that is an option that you can have as well. Also, we have some prizes here. Prizes are a variant that was introduced earlier in the game that are little pieces that get added in when you gamble and become little passives or victory bonuses for people who win gambling. It makes gambling more appealing. It certainly is valuable. You could argue that in a lopsided game, sometimes this just makes gambling even better for the gambling-heavy characters, which some people feel might not be balanced, but I think it's fun and it adds a cool little flavor, so certainly always nice to have the option to add additional components to your game. And that is everything that you need to know to jump in and have a really good time with these new expansions for Red Dragon Inn. Now, it's worth mentioning that these expansions are entirely standalone. I know that I didn't get super deep into the core rules of Red Dragon Inn. That wasn't the intention of this preview video. We just really wanted to show those new expansions and what they're bringing to the table. But it is worth knowing that 8 and 9 are entirely standalone. If you don't have anything for Red Dragon Inn, you grab expansion 9. You've got everything you need right there. You've got your cards, you've got the drink deck, you've got the gold coins that you'll need to play. Everything is there. So you don't need all the other stuff. You don't have to start at Red Dragon Inn 1, but you'll probably want to once you start collecting the characters and put them all in that treasure trove. It's kind of got that Pokemon feel. You want to catch them all. Again, that's a really great testament to me in this game, is that it's entirely standalone, but it plugs in with everything that we know and love super, super well with Red Dragon Inn. The variants, of course, backfill to other variant expansions. They also add new components. The way that Slugfest does these games is great. You can tell that Red Dragon Inn is Slugfest's kind of flagship franchise game, and that quality bleeds through, and that attention to detail and that care bleeds through on all these expansions. We continue to see that with 8 and 9. There's actually more than 9 expansions really already for Red Dragon Inn. There's over 50 playable characters for Red Dragon Inn. It's crazy how much stuff is in this title. There's just infinite replayability here, and you can have as much or as little as you want. You can pick and choose. You can go a la carte. It's just a great formula for a game. If you're a collector, this game is for you. If you're not a collector but like a few cool kind of D&D trope characters you want to bring together, this game is still for you. There's a lot of content here. Really excited, really appreciate Slugfest dropping those titles to us. And again, just want to show you guys what's in there and talk to you about how much fun they are. All the characters are great. Some were a little more mediocre, a little bit more general to me, but there were a few just standout awesome characters in these expansions. Again, as I mentioned, I love Dale. I love that mushroom system he's got going. I felt like I was playing an entirely separate mini game from everybody else, trying to manage all these shrooms that I'm growing. And it, of course, lends itself to some fun jokes as well. The Doctor was a really fun character as well. I love the patients that you're serving and trying to get that care to them and collect the right tokens to serve the right person. And there's just some really fun mechanics in these characters. Loved it. Loved the schemes. That's a super powerful character, being able to flip those schemes. You can say things like, you've activated my trap card, flip those up. There's just some really, really cool characters in these sets, and I had a blast with them. I love the pub crawl from 8. I think that is incredible. I think that adds some flair, some theme, and some really cool strategy and choices that you have to make for when it's up to you. Where do we go? Well, there's reasons you may want to go to certain taverns over another, and there's some cool strategy there. So I think that adds a layer of fun to the game as well. And of course, it's worth noting that these variants do add, of course, more play time to the game, but that's not a bad thing if you're having fun, right? These things are all really, really positive. So had a great time with them. It's worth mentioning the rulebooks, again, have all the standalone rules that you'll need to know how to play, as well as great in-depth explanations of the characters, their abilities, examples of how things work, the variants. Everything is in there. These rulebooks are great. As always, they're well crafted, they're clear, and they don't leave you wondering what ifs or asking hypotheticals that don't exist. The rulebooks do a really good job. So lots of positive things to say about these expansions. If you love Red Dragon Inn, then I would encourage you to check out these expansions. If you've never played Red Dragon Inn, then I encourage you to check out these expansions. They're really fun, really great additions to a title you may already have, or a great intro point to a game that you are soon to love. So I'd encourage you to check out Red Dragon Inn expansions 8 and 9 that are out now. And I want to thank you guys for checking out this video from Meeple Mountain. We love making board game content. If you like what we're doing, please hit the like, subscribe, hit the bell, all the things. Drop us a comment. Let us know that you are enjoying what we're doing, because we enjoy making video content because we love board games. So with all that said, I want to thank you guys for checking out this video and wish you, as always, happy gaming. Thanks for checking out this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out these links to find some other games you might want to bring to the table. This is Tyler Williams, signing off.